Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this week I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan, Alan and JP from the Unrestricted View. Welcome to Barra's Art and Design, gentlemen. It's not the first time you've appeared on Acsom. You've helped us out with the charity weekenders in the past, but it's a pre-season, so welcome along, and I'm pretty sure you guys have been talking about all the same topics that Acsom are covering. We're going to look back, look ahead to the new season, but we'll start off with Brendan Rodgers. Should he be signing a new contract? Should that be the big announcement, do you think, this summer?
Me personally, I think it's the biggest signing for Celtic in the summer, personally. I think that's got to be Celtic's first focus before they then go and start looking at players.
Well, it's got to be, yeah. I mean, if you're a player signing, we used the example of Lennon Miller, and apparently we're not in the hunt for Lennon Miller, which might be a disappointment. But if you're Lennon Miller and you've got offers in maybe England and Italy and Celtic, you want to make sure that the gaffer's going to be there, don't you?
It's imperative. I think that, I think Brendan personally is waiting until he sees how much ammunition he's given with the board this summer. I think he's waiting to see how much back he's given, the quality of player that's maybe been brought in. But you wouldn't really blame Brendan if he isn't getting that correct back and if he isn't getting the amount that you think he needs to bring Celtic forward again. We just look on last season, he's brought us a double, nearly a treble, but he's made that progression in the new format of the Champions League as well, which for us, it's a step in the right direction. So we need to continue with Brendan and make sure that we're backing him in the right way. If he's not backed, then I'm sorry to say, I probably think that he won't sign a new deal. But let's be positive, think that he will be backed in the summer. He will get the players that he requires, and then he will eventually sign a new deal. But yeah, it'd be a massive kind of boost for Celtic coming into this season, that we know we've got Brendan Rodgers, a manager. He has his ability, his record. You're looking at how well he's done in a number of clubs. So for us to go forward, knowing that we've got a manager at the helm with his stature, will be a massive boost for the club all round.
It works for everybody, doesn't it? I mean, Brendan Rodgers, I don't know what his aspirations are going to be beyond his time at Celtic, but it works for the club because you've got the stability. Also works for the club if he does leave, because we made £9 million from him when he went to Leicester. So get him signed up and then everybody's happy, and then we can attract players who can buy into the vision then, can't we? Because otherwise, why would you sign for a gaffer who's going to be there for 1 year?
I've said to Alan and JP as well that anybody who signs this summer, my first question would be, are you going to be here for the next year, 2, 3 years? Because obviously KT's been announced, 5-year deal. I'm guessing Brendan spoke to him that he might be here for some capacity of that. So similar to JP, I think it's imperative that we get him signed up. For me, I'd be talking to him now. I wouldn't be waiting to the European playoff or players. Get it now, because if he's here, then he can get the ball rolling. And I'm probably going to say similar to Alan, I think if he's not going to stay, I'd award going to back him. Because if he's going to plan ahead this year, it's not going to be the same manager's team next year. So I think if he stays, you need to back him, and by backing him, which I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's those squad fillers, it's starters, European level players, and I think that's all as a fan base, that's all we ask for.
He'll be under no illusion that we can't spend like the big 5 leagues. We can't spend that kind of crazy amounts of money. I've seen rumours kind of 30 million for Trafford for Burnley. The goalkeeper's going to Newcastle, I think. You're looking at, was it the Greek teenager, 18-year-olds, went to Brighton for £36 million. We simply can't compete with that. But I think what Brendan will be looking for is just a wee increase of what we have been spending. It is capable. It's well publicised, the amount of money that we've currently got sitting in the bank account. We know how well the club's been run, but let's see that in the park. Let's kind of put that out a wee bit and show that we can. I'm not saying we will have a challenge this upcoming year, but it's well possible, and we need to be well prepared to go out and kind of extinguish that challenge and make sure that there's no way we are staying at the top. And the only way to do that is have kind of put the finance in, but make sure that we're doing our scouting correctly, make sure we're getting the players in that are going to be first team starters. And overall, I think the main thing is backing the manager properly.
You know the point, yeah, JP, about a challenge. Nobody knows what it's going to be like next season, right? But what you can do is you can look at the fact that Aberdeen have got their house in order. We know their form isn't great in the second half of
Yeah.
the season, but they win a trophy. It's not like Aberdeen under Neil Warnock. That was laughable. That was an absolute shambolic Aberdeen. At least they've got that stability. And, Jimmy Tilleen brought in quite a lot of his own faces and his own players. So you've got Aberdeen, who finished the season obviously with a cup win. You've got Hibs second half of the season, seem to have stabilised with David Gray. And you look at them, they've already started strengthening. Dundee United, brilliant return to the Premiership last season. They'll hopefully continue to build on that. Hearts, you've got new ownership, you've got a new manager, a new approach, and of course Rangers with the takeover, but nobody's really mentioned much about that over the last few weeks, right? The takeover, at least they're going to be run as a business rather than hemorrhaging 300 grand a week, which has been the case last season. Celtic can't stand still, JP. We need to continue to progress.
Yeah, I think Brendan's massive. He's been a big advocate for it. He's said it in a number of interviews, even leading up to the end of the season. I think that's something the club will be actively doing. The lads speak about, bringing in, Ryan mentions about bringing in starters, and I don't think in the modern day game there is such a thing now. I think it's such a squad game now. You look at the amount of games Celtic are playing, you're well into the 60 mark.
Aye.
Over the season, you look at Europe Cups. I don't think you can actually say to someone, you come and play and you're going to guarantee to play every week. That's not the way it works now. Maybe back in the day when, you had maybe one position filled and that was all you had. But now you've got boys coming out and replenishing the squad, especially when you get to December. When you get to December, you're playing more or less a quarter of your league games in that 1 month. And it's, for me, the game's totally changing that way. And you're right about the improvements with the other squads. And that's the thing as well, people talk about the Rangers takeover and everything else. The other teams are getting better as well. So and they forget that as well. They forget that these other teams are improving. Aberdeen will be better for winning that cup, by the way. Jimmy Tierney will be better for that experience as well. And if the rumours are true that obviously he exploited Casper's shoulder being injured still, and what a stroke of magic that was for the analysis and the boys in that coaching team. So you are right, Celtic can't stand still. I don't think they will. Personally, that's my opinion. I think a great starting point before we've even started here. Kieran Tierney signed with the club again. It's been announced officially. It's been the best kept secret ever, probably. And but that's a great starting point. And for me, right away, guys like Callum McGregor, James Forrest, who have worked with Kieran previously,
Yep.
it's a massive lift for the club.
I totally agree with that. Instantly becomes the best defender. Eh?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
When he walks in the building, Tierney's the best defender.
The only reason we've signed him basically is because of some of these question marks that are above his head, the injury, but he has stayed fit for a number of months now. So if he was kind of playing regularly for Arsenal, which we know he can do, if he was staying fit constantly, then there's not a hope in hell that we'd be able to kind of achieve a player of that stature. But you look at, because of the question marks, and because of the association with Celtic previously, and them being a kind of diehard fan, that's the reason that we'll be able to kind of attract somebody of that quality. And for us, we need to simply take advantage of it.
I think having Brendan twice, and Kieran Tierney now twice, I think Brendan's bang on at end of the season when he said this is how it feels to be Celtic.
Jota twice as well.
Jota twice as well. I mean, there you go.
I'm totally agree with you, Paul John, that in terms of Kieran Tierney, I'm probably one of his biggest fans. I've been a big advocate of him in terms of signing. I'm no taking any injury situations involved in it, because I think he'll play a lot more than people think. People talk about the inverted role and stuff like that, but for me, he's borderline a world-class player, and I'm agreeing with Alan. If he wasn't a Celtic fan, didn't have the odd injury problem, he wouldn't be here, because he's, 28 now?
It wouldn't be possible, it wouldn't be on our radar.
I think you probably get a better Kieran Tierney than they left. He was fitter, he was stronger, more experienced, he's played in high-level games, and the outside world take away Celtic. We'll talk about the injury problems. He's not played a amount of games. He's actually played a decent amount of games, considering his injury issues, and you're getting, in my opinion, a world-class player. People might think I'm crazy for saying that, because he's not really playing at Arsenal, etc., but he's playing at a high-intensity level right now that's bigger than Celtic. He's playing against world-class players in training. He's not injured. So, for me, I think the injury thing's more of a smokescreen than the actual player you're getting.
It's a good point about the injury. There's been 2 big seasons where he's been affected by injury. But over the pieces he's played, and I keep saying this, he's actually played more football than Greg Taylor, and they're the same age. But you look at Taylor and you think, and I know that Tierney's a lot. His football was played in the early seasons at Celtic, but if you include international football, Kieran Tierney's played more football than Greg Taylor. But even though we're bringing him in, and as I say, I think he walks into the starting 11. He's the best defender. He's the vice captain straight off the bat. He makes your starting 11 better. We've still got an issue at left back because Taylor's obviously left the building. We've tried with Alex Baye, didn't work out. We tried with Jeffrey Sloop. I think most of us.
What was your thoughts on him, Paul John?
Sloop?
Yeah.
I thought he started off really well.
Yep.
Yeah.
He showed you what he could do. And then the game against Rangers where he beat us 3-2 and he's sleeping at the corner and you think you should never ever get beat in the air because you look at his stature and we've been going on about, the physicality or the lack of, and you're thinking he had everything. He had all the attributes.
He's done his actually with St Johnstone as well, did he?
Yeah.
Like he was sleeping for as well.
Yep. And the thing with Sloop, I think there's a lot of players like this, they get the fright of their life. Nat Phillips, come up from England and they've been through the big academies, they've played in big leagues. They come up to Celtic and think it'll be a cakewalk. And I don't buy into the fact, and I've heard a lot of people saying Sloop and Kuhn chopped it after Bayern Munich. I don't buy that at all, but it takes a certain type of motivation to then turn up against St Johnstone every week, week in, week out for Celtic. You're going to have the box office games, but you've got to do your bread and butter, and a lot of them just can't do it week in, week out, 50, 60 games a season.
I think Brendan found that as well. He found that a bit irritating for himself because there was a natural drop-off. We could all see it from when everything was kind of sewn up. I mean, it was the best kept secret that we were going to win the league. We'd known that for January, really, the way the season was going. But when it was official and everything else, that's when the players kind of mentally took a holiday in that way, that they momentarily checked out. Unfortunately, they also done it in the day of the Scottish Cup final. What a day not to bet your best, I don't think they done it deliberately. However, it did happen, and there was games like that last season where we saw that natural drop-off. But as you said, the motivation, there was some of those games where you're going to have to go and play St Mirren and play St Johnstone, and it must be dead hard after nearly really putting the frighteners in a Bayern Munich team and possibly taking that game to extra time, and anything could have happened. It's a game of football at the end of the day, and not one Celtic fan in their granny seen us scoring so late on and nearly actually winning the game there and then. And it was the last kick of the ball that really done us. So I do think that when you look at that, it can happen naturally for players to step off it. It's just unfortunate that this is how spoiled we are, in my opinion, because we're used to success with Celtic now over the last 20 years. When they do it, we're all like, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have done that. But we slightly forget that, hold on a minute, we've still won the double this season, as much as people were so disappointed with that. Because after that cup final, it was as if Celtic never won a trophy.
So deflated.
Yeah, it was. It was a really, really deflating day.
I think we look at the amount of inconsistencies maybe that we're showing, especially the second half of last year. We've touched upon that we're going to have improved sides in the league this year. Can we continue with the inconsistencies next year? Is that going to be an issue if we continue to kind of drop? What was it? Is it 6 games or something? And
I think
half of the
I
season.
think we dropped 18 points in the last 5 or 6 months of the season.
If the other teams get their act together, like you says, will we have that kind of that pillow, that backdrop to kind of we could still win the league with that? I think there is improvement there. I think that
We can't have the league though as well, remember. So as much as we're saying here the other teams have improved,
we went-
we won the league with 17 points to the nearest rivals.
we went for winning kind of 5-0 and at 6-0 and dominating teams
Yeah.
to get beat.
No, I get that.
1-0.
I get that.
There was like a couple of weeks in a row that we were kind of playing well off it. As I said, a number of times kind of poor performances lead to poor results. You can get the odd games that you'll get a last minute 1-0 victory and you've played kind of under par, but if you keep doing that game after game, the chickens are going to come home to roost. It will catch up with you and you will continue with the kind of that bad result that showed in kind of St Johnstone as well. So I think that, yeah, I think you're right that we still won a double, but the way that kind of Celtic are set up presently, we have got the best players, we've got the best infrastructure, we've got the most money, we've got the biggest crowds, we've got everything is the best in Scotland by quite some distance. So with that, you expect results. It's like any walk in life, any kind of form of life, whether it be football, sports, business. if you have got the best at everything, like other teams, 9 times out of 10, there will be that off season like COVID, etc. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to expect that the best teams win. That's usually the way it goes, and we just need to make sure that we're thinking heads on for kind of approaching this close season. We make sure that we're getting the right players in. Complacency is basically an absolute no-go. And for that, we shouldn't need to worry about any other teams if we've got our own house in order. And if we back the manager again, I think that's the most thing I'll probably say. If we back the manager again, I can only see kind of success going forward next year.
I just hope we get a cut of signings in, and you're going to need a cuddle if we don't.
Aye. No, we can see it all in front of us. We know we want to see the best version of Celtic. We don't want to be negative, we want to be positive, but we can see there. I know you say is that players you're looking at, it's no first team starters, but we need 16 first team starters, and you're looking at, is Yang able, see if you had Yang, Palmer, Kwon, these people, right? So if we had these players back and we were coming up against the Rangers team, would you be happy that they were in the starting lineup? So we need to bring players in that are ready to go into the starting lineup. We need to bring in quality that makes sure if we've got an injuries, which it's definitely injuries happen. That's just the way of life. Suspensions happen. If these happen, we need to have a squad that's deep enough to make sure that we're not dropping off in quality.
Yeah.
For me, a few of the players that we've got in the squad just now, they're better than any of us basically because they've actually made it to professional football. But it's a drop off in quality for me for the starting 11.
Yeah, and from a winger, you want them to change the game. I mean, against Aberdeen, the subs that we made no impact. The subs Aberdeen made gave them a lift. And I think, when we'll talk about the signings that we made last season as well. But when we're talking about these games against St Mirren, St Johnstone, and some of the other games where we drop points, I think it comes down to you've got like a winning mentality, but there's a culture within the football club that I think Kieran Tierney was part of. So he's going to return. And you're looking at James Forrest being part of it, Callum McGregor being part of it, Tony Ralston even. I know that he divides opinion, but these people came through the ranks and they know the standards. See, if you're a 6-month loan, do you really know the standards of Celtic football? You're only in to play football for 6 months. Maybe halfway through that, you're not going to get kept. And I'm not saying they're unprofessional and they're down to it, but they don't have the same desire and passion for the football club as the guys I've mentioned.
I agree with you. For me, guys like Kieran Tierney, the results of guys like Dundee away from home, the 3 each draw and Trusty, we all read the manager's lips. He would have been in the dressing room having a few words, I think. I would imagine guys like McGregor and that would have done that anyway, but there can be a natural drop-off, but in my opinion there's a natural drop-off with 1 or 2 bad performances or 1 or 2 games where you're not at it. We went through a phase of 4 or 5, 6 weeks where we were playing decent for 45 minutes. The second half was pretty poor or the other way about, and for me at a club like Celtic, the demands of us as fans, the demands the manager puts on, the stature of the club, and you need to win every game. For me, you can't do that because, like Alan says, you might get a bad performance here and there and still get victories, but eventually you will drop off. And I think we dropped off. St Johnstone, for me, was one of the worst performances I've seen in a long time. I think Brendan, I don't know how you feel, Paul John, but Brendan, for me, there's a wee bit of alarm bell shark or alarming bells that against St Johnstone, Dundee, he kind of questions mentality of some of the players. Be that it might be some of the new signings, i.e. if it's Kuhn, Engels, who I'm a fan of Engels to be fair, if it's Sloop, Trusty, I think that's maybe something he'll look at. And guys like Tierney right away, I think the standards, and especially in training, I think you mentioned Greg Taylor, I'm not his biggest fan, but he's been a brilliant selling for Celtic. But said to the guys on our podcast and other people you'll know as well, Greg Taylor's been good, but wait till you see this guy come in. Greg Taylor's really good at verted role, he's fit, he's athletic, he's good going forward. But then wait till you see this level of play, and for me, as soon as you go to training, the standards are very high.
Aye, without a doubt. It's like having another captain in your team. We'll talk about some of the signings that came in last season, and you've already mentioned a couple of them. Loads of them are dividing opinion. But before we do that, because we're talking big money on, obviously, the return in Jota, I don't think anyone would have questioned £10 million for Jota. Trusty, £6 million, Engels 11, Idah 8.5 rising to 9.5. And there's this argument about, well, why would you give Brendan the chequebook? Because the signings haven't worked out. I don't think it's as simple as that, but we'll break it down. And we did spend big. on the guys that I've mentioned, JP. But I think we need to spend big again. Now, we might get a £6 million defender that doesn't work out. That's football. But we can't hedge our bets and go for project players all the time. We've seen what happened with Lagerbielke and Nawrocki. Even though I think Nawrocki's had a raw deal.
Yep.
The gaffer clearly doesn't rate him, so he's not going to be part of the plans. So we'll start running through these signings. I'm going to start with the goalie. I know the final wasn't his finest moment, but Casper Schmeichel, for me, has been the best signing of last season. He's a leader. He's a winner. He doesn't want to give up in terms of he's 38-year-old. He wants to play until he's 42-year-old. And I think that it's unfortunate that the most recent memory we have of him is a cup final, because up to that point he was massive for us, particularly in Europe.
Yeah, I couldn't believe we got him in a free transfer. It was frightening. Again, another stroke of luck with the manager, knowing him really well and using his wee contact book and bringing him up the road. When the rumours came about that we were going to go for him, and then I says to the boys, I said, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. I think the Celtic fans at the time were concerned about his age and stuff. And I wasn't. I knew his ability, and he's a captain of Denmark. I mean, right away, that tells you what you're getting straight away. He's a leader, as you said. Look at the people surrounding him. Look who his dad is, for a start.
I can't believe I got through a whole season, never called him Peter. Honestly, at the beginning of the season, I'm going, it's going to hurt him all the time. But I know it, and his dad had that same mentality.
Yeah.
To the point of nastiness. It was just like, he was a winner.
Yeah.
And he didn't care who upset, he was a winner. I mean, he felt like all his teammates. I don't know if you've seen him on the overlap, and all that.
Yeah.
But obviously, as players, they clashed all the time. I love that. That's what I want from a goalkeeper.
Yeah, 100%. And Casper's done an interview since the cup final, and he says, that's football. Sometimes you make mistakes and you've just got to, he said, I don't regret anything. It happens and you make an error. We're all human at the end of the day. You make an error and sometimes it costs you, sometimes it goes for you. But listen, he pulls off some really big saves last season as well. You go back to the pre-season, Erling Haaland must have thought, what do I need to do to score here? He was saving everything. He was like a cat. And right away, you get the feeling and you get that buzz of, hey, we've got a good one here. And when you look at Celtic through the years, you look at big Boric, there's big moments Boric keeps you in games. And I've always said, see if you've got a good goalkeeper, you'll do well in Europe. Because they'll pull you at a hole.
Yeah.
When you're, not necessarily when your back's to the wall, but when you're not expecting it and he just pulls off a moment of magic.
Remember his performance against Man United?
Yeah.
Oh,
The penalty save for Louis Saha as well.
Frightening.
Unbelievable. And that's what I'm saying. Big goalkeepers who have got big personalities, have big characters, and they've got a lot about them. They'll do big things for you. And he's been unbelievable. I tell you, another one, obviously, just touching on that position. Sinisalo, now he flies under the radar for me. He comes in and everybody's going, he played with Exeter and he's not done this. And then right away, these boys get this cloud following them straight away because they're maybe not the big name or the fancy name, or they've not played at the level Casper has, and people don't know what to expect. And then you hear once he's into the season, Brendan giving it, no, the plan was maybe to send him out on loan. And it's like, oh, that's not happening now because we've now seen him. I was really, really shocked at how good he is, especially with the ball at his feet. He's absolutely tremendous. And I says to the boys, Casper passes the ball at a midfielder when he's bang on it. We've got two goalkeepers that can pass the ball like that now. And when you're playing this modern way of playing football, and Brendan likes playing out for the back, for me it's
I think when you touch upon that, that's probably just as important. Casper with his experience, that you're bringing in a relatively young player, a young goalkeeper, and you're learning for somebody with such experience as Denmark captain, played with Man City, won Premier Leagues, etc. Leicester as well with the Premier League. Learning for somebody that could be instrumental in his growth. That could be massive. And he's going into training every day and learning for somebody with all that experience. That's all he's going to bring his game on time and time again. So I think you're looking at that kind of slight, I don't want to say old, because I think it's the same age as me, Casper. So You look at that.
Casper's watching, I don't want him falling out this year.
I know.
He's old then, isn't he?
A seasoned professional.
Veteran.
So, and you've got the younger upcoming goalkeeper that's going to be learning from him. So, in an ideal world, that is ideal, because you're looking at that. He's going to take all that knowledge from Casper and hopefully kind of use that to progress in his own career. So, for me, it's a great match between the veteran and the younger goalkeeper, and that means that hopefully when Casper makes that decision that he's going to either hang up his boots or leave Celtic, we should be able to have a ready-made replacement there.
And just to quickly add to what Alan's saying there as well, it's standard setting. So Sinisalo's probably been used to a certain way of working elsewhere. Right away, his whole methods and everything's going to change, because Casper does things a certain way, and if you want to be the best, then you need to, this is the path you need to follow. And the example setting that Casper would have done would have been unbelievable for the ball.
What I like about it is we haven't done enough of that. You know, bringing somebody in to learn for the old head. And I think when you go back, Fraser Foster, right? So he comes in quite young. And I remember when, I think a couple of times he was on loan, half-time every game, Stevie Wood's out pinging balls. Remember? He was half-time pinging balls at him because he wasn't great at crosses. And then the pass, he wasn't great at passing the ball, he wasn't great with his clearances. So we worked on that keeper, we worked on him. But after that, it's been experience with Craig Gordon, who had all but retired at the point that we brought him back.
Yeah.
And then you move on from there and you look at, right, so the goalkeeper that comes next after Craig Gordon is Foster, because we know what he can do, right, and his experience by that point. And you're looking at obviously Barkas is an anomaly, right, so we can forget about him. Joe Hart, you're pulling that experience because we don't have anybody coming through, and then we've done the same with Schmeichel. So even though he never came through our academy, we are developing a goalie, which we've not done probably since Foster. We developed Foster first time round when he was a championship reserve at Newcastle, and I think Stevie Woods deserves loads of credit for that. I'd love it if it was one of our own goalies coming through, but we've not produced a goalkeeper.
Just to touch on what you're saying there, one of our old goalies possibly could be returning, and young Ross Doohan, he made his senior debut at Scotland set up last night as well, so
Sad to see Bain's going, Scott Bain.
Tell you what,
I've looked forward to his testimonial.
Tell you what, he's really fortunate. He's many medals is that he's won now, and
he worked out an average of a medal every 5 appearances. Every 5 appearances.
Should have ready on the next team. It was something.
It's going to be a battle between him and Scott Carson, isn't there?
I know.
A third choice goalkeeper's probably the best job in the world. You're getting all the experience, you're getting your free travel, your wage packet, you're basically sitting with cigars and slippers out and you're enjoying yourself. But obviously, listen, they're probably still working hard behind the scenes. But I totally agree with what you're saying about Casper. My question is to the fans out there as well. Is there a slight worry with Casper this year because his injury? How is he recovered fully? Can he go again next year playing the same amount of games? You mentioned JP about Sinisalo. Don't know what you and Alan, Paul John thought about that, but in terms of what you mentioned with Sinisalo, for me, the fact he was going to potentially send him out on loan again, if he didn't really come in and do well, or Casper's injury, that means we're going to be signing somebody to come in and do the same job. So is there really a recruitment plan there? Because why would you send somebody on loan to develop, to bring somebody else in to do the same job who might not be as good as Sinisalo? So why not keep Sinisalo developing until Casper's away and then let him go and just give him the cup games? Even the cup games, that's strange for me that he's not even getting the cup games. So that's why I was thinking, is he that good? Because if he was decent, he would have played the cup games. Because normally, all through the years, the second choice normally plays the odd League Cup game or the CIS Cup. Charlie played until he got injured, and then when he played, he's been good. And I'd say to you, I've been a player, Schmeichel. As much as he's been amazing, as much as he's been amazing, he's got the jersey, he's on form, he's been really good, he's fully fit, and then he's played Casper in the final, potentially was injured. Don't know if he was, but it looked like he might have been. Was it allowed for Brendan to play him in the final because he is at number one?
Hindsight's a beautiful thing though, because now we know the Aberdeen boys have come out and made public knowledge that they've targeted that. So hindsight's a wonderful thing. We all didn't know before the Aberdeen fellas have come out and said that they've said now. So if you're sitting back and you're going, well, Casper, you're just thinking to yourself, he's made a mistake there.
Just type on the goalkeeping. I think eventually we will need to go for if it's a 28-year-old or 32-year-old, some spend a wee bit of money because when's it?
That's a free agent now.
Aye, so he is, aye. But I think get the gang back together. I think eventually once Schmeichel goes, if Brendan doesn't stay on, he might not like Sinisalo or Uyafa. So you're then in the same predicament. You need to then sign in a goalkeeper and a number 2. So ideally you'd want to have somebody, in my opinion, when Casper goes, if it's no Sinisalo, it's going to be a starter. It's going to be a number 1 because I like what the board do with the model and stuff, but I think sometimes I'm agreeing with you, Paul John, that we do need to spend bigger because I know it's no maybe always look the case, but 9 times out of 10 in life, if you go to a restaurant, the more money you pay, the better food you get. With players, the more money you spend, 9 times out of 10, it's better players.
I think they've been scared by Varkas. When was the last time he spent big money? Because I mean, even Boric wasn't a big transfer. Forster was 2.5 million. Varkas was the first time we actually shelled out. Unless I'm wrong, I can't think of any other goalie. We shelled out big money on him, and it was a complete flop.
Yeah, that's
Scarred for life with it.
Yeah,
see,
it
the
seems
West,
like it.
see the West Ham, mind you, he was angry. But I'm scarred for life after that.
You're probably right, because even if you look at through Martin O'Neill's team, didn't really spend much money in Douglas, and John Fagul was there. Starting, you had Boric, didn't really spend a lot of money. Zaluska, Tony Moe didn't spend a lot of money on goalkeeper. But Doris de Vries,
Sanchez brought on,
Sanchez Brock, so Paul John's right. When was the last time, apart from Barkas? But that shouldn't frighten you. You've still got to, surely out of the data analysis, the recruitment team, whoever it is, there must be a goalkeeper out there that we can get with Casper who's bang on, he's a good age, good experience. Now, I can guarantee you, I'm being serious here, we could sit in front of a database, we could sit in front of YouTube, we could go to an amateur game and go, that guy's decent. So why do we struggle
Well, we're strong with
in certain departments?
Well, we're strong with that Lovakovic for a while, wasn't it? It was 7-8 million. That's right,
Livakovic, so
and that didn't materialise. So I don't know if Celtic see.
the other big fella or not, was it Wolfsburg, Matt? The German boy? Was it German? Was he German?
I remember we ran through every goalie we had been linked to. I think there was like 17 keepers. I think we'd been linked to. But again, like you say, everybody's got access now to the same databases. Everybody uses 1 or 2 of these recruitment systems, and you can identify these goalies. But it's interesting that we didn't tend to go big on keepers. Even Sinisalo, we would pay £1.5 million for him, and hopefully he can develop. I'd like to see him developing. In hindsight, it's a great thing. What were you saying at the time, though, when Schmeichel was due to come back? We actually put it out there one day on Acsom. It was, if Schmeichel's fit for the final, does he play? And it divided the Acsom contributors down the middle. Some were saying, he's the number 1. But then I was thinking, but Sinisalo's done nothing wrong. So maybe he should retain the jersey. And that was a good discussion at the time. It's easy now to say that we should have stuck with Sinisalo, but I do think it was an argument at the point.
I think so.
I said Casper. I like what Sinisalo's done. I think sometimes when he's coming for cross balls, it seems to be flapping slightly with the punching. And there has been people that are saying that they see that as a good attribute of his game, the way he's coming out. But
quite strong when he gets his hands.
I've seen it a couple of times, but he's kind of, the ball's maybe went slightly over the top of his hands, and he's kind of flapping in it. And I think he will come on for all this education with Casper, but whether it be he's ready at this precise moment to play a full season as Celtic's number 1, I'm not so sure. But possibly that might be the season after next. I think that may well be the plan, but my personal opinion before the cup final was to go with Casper because he was a kind of trusted goalkeeper. He was your number 1 goalkeeper, and going into a game that can win you a domestic treble, I thought you always go with your best players.
You know,
I want to know if Casper's got cement tied in his boots, man, and he's stuck on that line, isn't he? His nickname should be Dracula, because he does to come for crosses.
I remember that was the same with Pat Bonner back in the day, by the way, JP. We had worked for about a year with a collaboration for an item of merchandise with Microdot, who worked with Oasis and the Verve. And the Verve used to have this T-shirt, they still will, Microdot still sell it, Music Saves. And it was from the bumper stickers on these Christians over in America with Jesus Saves, right? So we were like, I said to Brian, we'll do Casper Saves, and he was having a great season. You know, it launched a few days after the cup final, so you can imagine the response.
The sales.
I'm just waiting to pick up again. You know what I mean? Next season, but took us a year to develop.
I can understand the reasons behind people saying no for Casper and yes for Casper. I can understand because he's number one, he's been amazing all season. He should play the highlight, the end of season game. But for me, sometimes sentimentality or the loyalty thing is sometimes got to go out the window. It's got to be the best players on the park who's fit that day. And on hindsight, should Sinisterra probably played? Probably. There's a lot of players in that cup final probably should have played, and I think it's a big thing you mentioned, Paul John, in terms of the squad depth. I think it's realised that we've not got the biggest squad in terms of quality, because guys like McKibben, brilliant for Scotland. Bernardo, I'm a big fan of, injury issues. Idah, we can touch on him if that's what we're going to talk about, Paul John, but for me, I'm not his biggest fan. But the full thing for me in terms of squad depth, Kyogo leaves in January, didn't replace him. If you had a similar quality to Idah or a replacement for Kyogo off the bench in the cup final, would you have won the game? Possibly. It gave you fresh legs, movement up front, attacking kind of nous up front, and I think we missed that because we mentioned guys like Yang off the bench, McKibben, Bernardo, they don't bring you the creativity or somebody Kyogo would, or a similar Jota who would have probably won you the game as well. So it is hindsight, but
I just think that day, Ryan, it didn't matter who played, mate. I just think that the players were just, it was an off day. So I think the game, if I said to you before, it was a boxing match. Celtic were winning that with a jab. They weren't really doing too much. They were just controlling the game, and then that mistake happens, and Aberdeen get the backs are up and the fans are up at that point. Celtic were winning that game 1-0. They were never in any serious danger at that
That's me
point.
off to win it, no, but that's
No, we didn't.
I get what
No,
Ryan
we
says
didn't,
as
but we
well.
were winning it though.
I get
That's the
it.
thing, and even that was an OG.
I get what Ryan says as well, because see if we go over on Jota there to bring on or to play him instead of Idah and Yang, for me we win the game comfortably, very comfortably. I think everybody that knows that watches your personal podcast that by far know Idah's biggest fan, and I think that you're looking at him and Yang, everybody's speaking about Yang after the cup final, that his performance was probably something left to be desired, shall we say. So I think in that quality, if we'd replaced Kyogo or kept Kyogo, if Jota had been fit, these are all ifs and buts, but I think we're far and beyond a better side if we've got Jota and Kyogo rather than Idah and Yang for me.
Definitely, no, I do agree. I just think that the way that even big team players in the game like Carter Vickers and Callum McGregor, there was misplaced passing happening in the
First minute of the game, JP.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, is this a sign? He
Here
goes
we go.
behind Scales,
Aye.
remember? And he's looking up in the distance, isn't he? And sure
Yeah.
what's happening.
That's what I'm saying. So for me that day, nobody was at it,
on Liam Scales you mentioned, that was me and Alan watched the game. JP got us later on. Whether you had a ticket for the game wasn't in the ballot, but I counted 7 mistakes for Liam Scales in 12 minutes. Top players don't make mistakes like that. And again, it divides opinions. People have got their favourite players, and I think sometimes you need to take the blinkers off and realise if we want to progress a football club, guys like Scales, Yang, Ali Narovsky, but he's, like you mentioned, the gaffer that's the fancy him, Narovsky, even potentially guys like McKibben, Idah, for Celtic to move forward and be the best we can we get better than that? Should we get better than that? I think the answer is probably yes. But it divides opinion, and I think you'll probably know it yourself.
No, it's great. It's great that it divides opinion because it's a great discussion point with Scales. I mean, the team that we put out there to play Aberdeen should have won the game on paper, but the energy wasn't right. We just weren't on it. And then you're thinking to yourself, as it progresses, did we do enough? But what I'm going to say, going back to the point about the striker in January, you could go right back to January here and you say, right, even though Idah's not had a great season, who made that difference last season? It was a guy we brought in January on loan. It was Adam Idah. I mean, the 2 goals against Motherwell, the 2 goals against Hibs, the cup final winner, the goal that looked like a winner at Ibrox, but we drew 3 each. So we brought in a lone player and he made a huge difference. In January there, we didn't bring in anybody.
He's have regressed since that loan season then, do you think? See, like, he obviously made that impact when he was in on loan, and this season, I question his attitude sometimes. I know he's good.
Can it check suit, doesn't he?
I think it was the last game at Celtic Park. We had the ball in the second third. He was sitting 10 yards offside, and he was kind of sauntering back, and I'm like, excuse me, you need to be back to kind of try to play the ball forward. There's a few times Ryan said he's right in the tunnel as well. We've seen about the questions with at Norwich when they refused he missed a flight. Whether that be to come to Celtic or not, I don't like that attitude to start with, because what would stop him from doing that if he wanted to move away from Celtic? So I think maybe he showed in that loan half season that he has got attributes. Whether he's shown all the attributes or had the effort for the attributes this season, that's where I'd question him, because for me, in comparison to the games I've mentioned, apart from maybe the Aston Villa game, he's regressed there. I've not seen, and it shows Kyogo was wanting away. That's publicised now. Kyogo was wanting to move for a couple of months before, but Brendan yet still continued to play Kyogo instead of a £9 million striker. So how much confidence has the manager got on the way that he does playing at that time? For him, if a player wanted out the door, you would think, right, I've got a £9 million striker, I'll put him in instead of the player that wants away. But that wasn't the case. Kyogo continued to play his first choice, and he's still sat on the bench. And for me, I've just not seen enough. And I don't think it's to do with the price tag either. Some people say that. I just think at Celtic we've seen far, far better strikers than we've seen at present for Adam Idah. I'm no writing them off at present. Let's see, it'll be a pre-season and we'll try to be positive. But for what I've seen last year, I know he scored 2 goals, but I've not seen enough to say that he's going to be a number one.
Well, I'll tell you what, if that's an Adam Idah that's regressed, he's hit over 20 goals for us.
A lot of players have done that, JP. You look at 2 wingers that have done
I know, but we're front three that season that's just passed broke history.
I know, but you've got 2 wingers.
60 goals between them.
You've got 2 wingers that have done that, and a striker that done that. Striker should be doing that. The only Griffiths that scored 40 odd goals in years.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So in my opinion, he became an Adam Idah if he didn't do it, but he did do it and he's still getting caned.
It's just
That's
I just
can't
think
do it.
it's no good enough. What he showed last year, it's nowhere near good enough for what.
Well, for me, considering you mentioned it about when he signed, so take it back to when he signed. What he's done for the team up to now. Would you have said that he's well worth that £9 million?
See, with Idah, I think that the price tag is an issue because we need to normalise buying players for £10 million, because to be honest with you, it's nothing. It's a drop in the ocean.
Yep.
We're buying a second choice striker for Norwich for £9.5 million. We need to get used to that. I think one of the big issues with Idah is he's not used to that mentality of every week. You know, your performance against Motherwell we spoke about and against Hibs, you need to do that every week, not just now and again. And he seems to do it in wee batches. So he has a good run of form, and then it's almost like I've done enough. I remember that goal he scores against Dundee United, the great goal for outside the box. He was rotten for about 15 minutes before he did that, right? But the point is though, see the impact he made, even though he was on loan. Why didn't we do that? If we couldn't get the deal done in January for whoever the top target was, bring somebody in. Because see that margin against Bayern Munich, with all the chances we created, and the margin against Aberdeen, just that wee bit of magic.
Yeah.
Bring somebody in on loan. We didn't even do that.
I think you're absolutely spot on, and I think for me, it's complacency. Because I've said to the guys, you probably had it on your channel as well, Paul John, that for me, if Celtic were 3 points behind in the league or 3 points ahead, there was not a chance in hell Kyogo was getting sold.
I think it is then.
I don't think so.
You said as well, Cons, that when Simon Murray left Ross County, and a day later they had Roman Hill.
Yeah.
And so if we're selling a striker like Ryan's talking about, we've got to have a contingency plan.
I don't know if I know there was talk about getting priced out of the Slovan Bratislava striker. You've got Kitsesgarden for Bromby, but sometimes you just need to bite the bullet, and like you just mentioned there, we need to start normalising paying 12, 10, 8 million, because if we're going to win Europe every season in this big format, you're going to get the finances. Sometimes you need to pay a bit more and reap the rewards, because see, like you've just mentioned there, if that striker who comes alone, he might only score you 2 goals, but it might be the goal against Bayern Munich and it might be the goal against Aberdeen that wins you the final. And we're not talking about Kyogo leaving, because he's come in, replaced him with 2 major goals that might have got you through the next round of the format and won you a treble. And I think you're absolutely spot on, because if you had somebody like Adam Idah come in, even if it's only for 4 months, then the summer, right, don't worry, the summer we've got Kitsesgarden coming in and we've got somebody else coming in, you're fine with that, because you've replaced him, you've got Kenny's backup, you've got Idah or Idah. I think they'd all be, I think you're absolutely spot on, and I think it's something that's got to be looked at. I think we are very reactive when it comes to transfers. I mentioned that one there with Simon Murray. You've got Liverpool, new threats away, Frimpong's in. I noticed a total different spear for money side, but Aston Villa, Duran leaves, within 2 days I've got Asensio and Rashford in. When we let somebody go, it's links, agents.
It
And then it's two-
it took a wee bit. It took about a week and a bit, didn't it, until Engels came.
And again, I'm not going to criticise because
know, we could.
I'm not in the boardroom. I'm
Two of
not
them saying the same thing.
I don't know what they're doing. Every team should probably have, say, five for a position.
Yeah.
If you watch Someone Till I Die, it's obviously on Netflix. Positions. So if you can't get the first guy, second, sometimes it just feels like, right, we can't get him. We'll just go for him. And I just think, don't you feel, Paul John, but for me, I think we need to move with the times in terms of how quickly we react.
No, without a doubt. You asked about Idah. I would say, even if you just look at the Champions League, because that's where obviously you can make your money back, he scores in his first Champions League game for Celtic. He was brilliant against Atalanta, even though he never scored. It wasn't an attacking game,
Yep.
but he was brilliant at the job that he was given. He forces the goal against young boys that makes us qualify for the knockout. Scores a couple against Aston Villa. You think
Should have scored.
and the two goals against Villa. So you're thinking to yourself, well, he's made his money back. I just think if we sold him tomorrow, and it will be the same discussion about Engels, so if you sell him tomorrow, if you get your money back, then he's worth the money. It's like Arne Engels, they're talking about 20 million quid. I say on Acsom all the time, by the time we sell him for 20 million, there's going to still be people saying he wasn't worth 11. That's how mad it gets with normalising transfers. You know, so let's move on to Engels then. I've never seen a player divide opinion so much than Arne Engels recently, right? I mean, he's got a year in the Bundesliga at 20-year-old. So he's played in the Bundesliga from 19 to 20. If you want that player, you're paying 10 million quid. And I just don't have an issue with it. He's played 50 games this season, he won the double, loads of goals, albeit most of them for the penalty spot, loads of assists, man of the match awards in the Champions League. I thought it was a decent debut season. What do you reckon, Alan?
I like Arne Engels. I think he has got a lot of attributes. He looks as if he's a very talented player. You know, he's a younger boy as well. He's 21 just now. He's coming to a new country, a different standard of football, but one that is. Celtic need players that know we need to win every week. They need that desire, that effort. It's coming to a new culture, new country, so it's going to take a wee while to set in. And the bits and bobs that I've seen in Arne Engels have been a few kind of matches that I'd say he's been man of the match in a few of the matches. He has kind of been inconsistent, but I'm putting that down to he's still learning the country, learning the club.
Yeah.
And I think that he will kick on next year, but I don't think there's any doubt about it. You don't get in the Belgian national side without having a certain degree of talent, and you see the talent he's got. He's kind of his eye for a pass, the way he turns in the ball. I think he will come good. I think give him this pre-season here, and I think we'll start seeing the best consistently of him next year.
I've seen it in the press. They're saying he was only worth 3 million and all that. I just think this is madness. I'll go back to different type of players. Stan Petros versus Celtic. And he wasn't in a great side, I get that. But I mean,
Started at left back and all, didn't he?
Remember that season that we had the hoop stop that get recalled because it all bobbly?
Aye.
So first of all, I had Petrov on the back of it. It was the NTL one. I had Petrov on the back of it. So they took it back for free and gave me free printing one. I changed it to Berkovic.
And you're admitting it.
I know, I'm admitting that. I'm still going at the house.
That jersey reminds me of Berkovic. It just reminds me of him. But I mean, Engels, 11 million, first season for me, I think he's done well. I wouldn't say, listen, he was a 9 or a 10. I'm thinking 7. I would give him a 7. If I was to rate his first season, I'm giving him a 7. And a lot of people are also saying if you could make your money back this summer, you would. I don't think Celtic will, because I think he's got a really high ceiling as well. JP, what was your assessment of him?
I was really happy with him. I'm like the lads, I couldn't understand the criticism he was getting at times, and he's got legs all day. He brings an element of physicality, which really helped us in the Champions League there in the season. You look at his look at the game against Atalanta. I forgot Ademola Lookman was playing because of him. The job he done on him, the man marking job he done on him, just legs all day long. And Alan touches on he's played international. He was applauded off the pitch when he played for his international. it's just, as everybody says, I mean, I think it's, for me, the way I want my team to play and the way I want Celtic to play, I want the guys at Celtic sign to come and make contributions. So you slightly touched on Adam Idah. Adam Idah gets a doing off a lot of the Celtic fans because he doesn't score every single week and he doesn't do this. I don't need him to do step overs and look like Cristiano Ronaldo. I want him to put the ball in it and make a contribution. It's the same with Engels when I watch Engels. I want him to come in and help Callum McGregor, help Rio Atati and take some pressure off him, especially in the bigger games. You look at him against Club Brugge, I thought he was missing in the first half. And if that's a word of phrasing I can use. And then the second half, it was like a kind of night and day when he was playing. So, again, I thought Celtic gave Club Brugge a 45-minute start to that night before we really woke up and went, right, here, we've got a game in our hands here. But when you look at the season overall, I'm really happy with Arne Engels. And I really think how he's watching his interviews from the beginning to right through the season, I think he's really surprised at, as you said earlier, about the demand. So it's not as, he's playing with Augsburg. And for me, I says that on our channel, I says, that's holiday football. He's only playing one game a week. And it's all right, by the way, if he draws and he gets beat, we can go away, we'll train, we'll work on it, and we'll come back next week. You draw up there and it's never heard of. And certainly when you get beat, it's an absolute catastrophe and you need to go hiding for days and you're not allowed to be seen. So I think that demand will help him a lot at such a very young age, because some of the young lads that are coming here, Paul John, I think, you know, their eyes get opened widely when they come to Celtic, because one, they win things because Celtic are successful and they've come into a successful side. Two, they've got demands to meet from your manager, guys like Kieran Tierney in the squad, Callum McGregor, Casper Schmeichel, all these guys put demands on you in the day-to-day in the training field. Maybe these boys aren't used to that and not exposed to that. Then you've got a fanatical fan base that fill that arena every second week. So when you've got all that to combine...
And you've got 50 podcasts that look at...
Oh, that's what I was going to say. You've got 50 or 60 podcasts out there that are telling you you're a big daddy and you're this and you're that. And so it's only obvious it's going to take effect. But I think the most important thing is, it is only his first season. And like you've said, he's came in, he's scored some goals, he's contributed with numbers, and he's won a double. So again, they'll be better for that experience.
I mean, to take retrospect as well, that he is a Belgian international, and currently, domestically, we have got another Belgian international that's worth about 642 million. Just inside at least. So, so how we weigh that up? 3 million to that absurd amount, because Belgian international, but that's just it.
It's funny he's not worth the 11, but the other one's worth multis.
I know. The other thing I always think's funny is, but it's just penalties. Has anybody ever taken a penalty in a high pressure situation? Because it's not just penalties. We were rotten at penalties for seasons on end, and he's came in, and I'm confident every time he takes one.
It's not that, and see the ones that are saying it's just penalties, they're basing that on basically their captain made a living off that.
I know.
It's quite a number of years until we get VAR and they started doing their job right.
Aye.
It takes a bit of bollocks, quality. Stand up in an arena, 60,000, like you say, be a massive fan base, European nights, pressure. I'm a fan of Engels. I did say to you early on, again, people can clip it and they can say, Ryan, you were right or wrong, and listen, we all get things right or wrong. We've got an opinion at a time. In 6 months' time, it might look silly, it might look like you've the best thing ever. I think the guy's one of a superstar. I think he's got everything in his locker to be a real star for Celtic next season. He's got the basis of a brilliant level of football, international football, like Paul John mentioned. To buy somebody for the Bundesliga, you're not going to spend less money than what you're bought him for that level of football. His distribution for me is phenomenal. Every week he's playing the balls on the back of the forward line, and I think if it's Idah or whoever's going to be next year, personally, I think if you go and spend a bit of money on, if it's Kitz's-Garden or somebody else, I think they'll feed off that. I think he'll score barrel loads with that, because I think he's got the basis of a very high ceiling. And if there's one manager that can make him into the player that I think he's going to be, and potentially, I think if you sell him now, I think you're getting £20 million, because he's won the double. I think he's got 10, 12 assists, 8, 10 goals, man of matches. If you look at his data and look at that, he's a £11 million player. So for me, I think if there's one gaffer that can potentially make him better for Celtic and the club financially, it is the gaffer who we need to sign, Brendan Rodgers.
And Paul John, another one, do look at the Bayern Munich game. You know, he's playing in tight areas, he's taking the ball in a tight area, he's head up looking, and
Yeah.
he's, that side of that will be developing as well. And again, for me, for Celtic, because for me, Celtic have outgrown Scottish football now. They're by far away gone. It's all about Europe now for me. So if Celtic want to develop in Europe, we need guys like that to come in and help the team.
Without a doubt, and what you pointed out there about his value, when we signed him, and he was an £11 million player, he wasn't an international, and he'd never kicked a ball in Champions League. So fast forward a year, even if you forget all the domestic stuff, he's now an international footballer who's played Champions League football.
Yeah.
So he's definitely worth at least what we paid for him. But as you say, if we were to sell him, we'd make a profit. I don't want us to. The last player, because I think Idah's the one that's divided opinion more than any, is Austin Trusty. Let's throw Austin Trusty into the mix. I'll start with yourself, Alan. Bit up and down with him, to be honest with you. I mean, I see some good things with Austin Trusty. I seen him coming in for Scales, who you mentioned before, and thought, you know, the quality's different. But he lost his place by the end of the season. We all remember the lip reading against Dundee away when Simon Murray, who by the way, he could noise up just about any defender.
Yeah.
He's an unfashionable player, but you know, Austin Trusty didn't fancy that at all that night, did he?
Aye, I'll miss out the second part of the lip reading for Brendan Rodgers, but I think week was probably the most relevant part of that. I thought he started off his Celtic career relatively well. I was seeing kind of positive attributes. I thought that he looked relatively strong, relatively decent on the ball coming forward, and I thought that he was going to be that guy that was going to be next to Carter Vickers, that was going to complement Cameron. Since that Dundee game, I think there's been a turning point, and I think Brendan's opinion's changed as well, because now it looks like Liam Scales he's went up that pecking order. Looks as if Liam Scales is the ideal kind of candidate to be a partner for Carter Vickers. Whether we bring in another centre half in the summer transfer window, that's a different thing altogether. I think if we do, it'll be somebody to probably replace either Scales or Trusty, and I could probably see a couple moving on the centre half to it. Part of the field I think you touched upon earlier was Lagerbielke and Narowski. I don't think Kenny's would be surprised if the two of them were kind of pastures anew this upcoming year. So I think Trusty, I'll give him another pre-season and see if he can adjust and kind of learn under Brendan. But I think you can see on kind of team lineups that Brendan's he's went down the pecking order with Brendan since that kind of Dundee game. But if he can get back to the way he was playing earlier on in the season, then there may be a possibility he can work his way back. So
I agree with that, because it's always CCV plus A another, and you kind of thought Trusty was that guy to bring a bit of steel, but he's kind of dropped, and probably Welsh is probably in the same bracket as Lagerbielke and Nawrocki. Rodgers seems to like Dane Murray. He likes Murray. Murray would have played against Rangers, but he obviously pulled out the squad. Nawrocki was thrown in. Trusty I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot, JP. If you got £6.5 million bid tomorrow, would you sell him?
It's certainly worth thinking
Take your
about.
money back.
It was certainly worth thinking about. However, what I would say about Austin Trusty is he's got a ton of speed, but none of them have. He's the fastest, I would say.
He was excellent against Atalanta.
Yeah, he's got a ton of speed, but he's certainly, I would say he's even quicker than Carter Vickers, and he's certainly not a right via, that's for sure. He's got a severe ton of speed. I'd like to see him use his height a bit more and start bullying people a wee bit more.
Aye.
Stop I've watched him a number of times when we're playing up against a man Martin system, and he gets blocked off quite a lot, and he does it. Scales is the same, by the way. They get blocked off quite easily. So when the ball's coming over, they're blocked off. That's how you see Nico Raskin nipping in through the gap, because there's always a gap there, because they're getting blocked off. So he needs to stand up to that a bit more. But I think there's always going to be teething problems when you talk about a fella that's coming for Sheffield United. No disrespect to Sheffield United. They have played in the Premier League and they've played in the predominantly Championship. But again, you look at the demand, you look at what's putting on him, and he might be outstanding against Atalanta, but the big fellas, look, Callum McGregor and the boys are saying to us, you need to do it again on Saturday. No point in you doing it tonight and then you go missing for 2 or 3. You need to, we need it again. So again, it's all about building. I'm not quite quick to throw in the towel with players. I was with Barcastle, when you mentioned him earlier. I was with Barcastle, you could see right away.
There wasn't much to like.
No.
I see a physicality part, JP. I said in the last pod, you look at the size of him, right? It's a big bit of boy, Trusty, right? You get pushed off that ball for Simon Murray as if it was Brian McLaughlin in the mid-90s. That's what it was like. Basically, just, you get pushed off the ball. For a centre-half at Celtic, somebody has size and stature, that shouldn't be happening. And I think that's how Brendan got so mostly irritated. I think he was very angry, but I think that's probably why he's come down that orders, because of that physicality. That should be that's a fundamental, a Celtic centre half. That is just the basics. So you need to be able to stand your ground and
put your head on the ball.
You think of someone, even like Stubbs, Mjallby, Vermaelen, Big Bobo, these guys were monsters.
Even Ramon Vega and Stan Varga and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
never get my tap signed off Varga. I was a bit
giant.
It's like back in that team with O'Neill, don't know how we can say it these days, but I know there's a lot of female footballers now, but they were man-mountain, strong monsters, and I think all over the park, I think we are far too nice. It's all technically tippy-tappy. It's brilliant to watch on the eye, but see sometimes when in Europe, we've not got a Wanyama or a Brown. It's a bit of a dying breed in football, but we've nobody to, I'm not saying break somebody's leg, but to let them know there. We've made somebody. Austin Trusty.
We have now, Kieran Tierney.
Aye, Austin Trusty for $6 million. I think if you can get it back, I think you would take it and go and sign somebody else, because I think there's a lot better out there than Trusty. It's already done against Atalanta, we've mentioned, but your bread and butter is in Scotland, and if a Dundee striker is giving you a merry-go-round, I know we can perform the odd bad game, but he was brought in because I think Brendan, he might like Scales, but we paid that money for him to come in and replace Scales, and he's not replaced him. I think we need to buy 2 centre-backs, one to replace Scales, and probably one to come in and we compete with Trusty and David Vickers, because it is Vickers and somebody else. Because I don't think we'll sell Vickers, I don't think we can afford to sell him, because, can I be honest, do I trust the recruitment team to go and buy 3 centre-backs and one the quality of Vickers? Probably no.
I don't think they're going to, because as Paul Graham says, Ryan, I think Dane Murray's going to be a big
on that, right,
next season.
How can you go for playing okay with Queen's Park, right, and then potentially be up to play against Rangers when Nerowski's been training all season? He's probably been told, you need to do this better, you need to do that better. He's done it, he's come in against Rangers out of the blue, probably best defender, Hearts apart from 1 or 2 fresh air kicks, brilliant. And then Rodgers says, I'm not playing against St Johnstone because I want a left-sided centre-back. I called out in our podcast, for me it's B-U-L-L, right? It's nonsense.
What's the game we watched? The Nerowski was with partnered Scales, and Nerowski was playing the ball forward.
I can't remember.
Directly, there was a game.
For me, I can get why he's maybe a bit rigid, a bit frigid in terms of the speed and sharpness, but he's good on the ball. It's 1-2 crisp passes. I think he's somebody we need to keep to develop, because a lot of Polish outlets were saying this guy's the next Polish centre back. He's what a signing, this and that, and whatever reason I think he's been harshly treated, but we don't know behind the scenes what's going on. But I think we need to sign 2 centre-backs. One is top quality, and the other to come in, because I think Nerowski will be away, Lagerbielke, Welsh. The Murray one, we're not there, we don't see what happens, but obviously the manager likes him. But to go for Queen's Park, to then go in to play against Aberdeen, Rangers, Aston Villa, I don't think people realise how big a jump that is. That's in playing Partick Thistle, yes, it's a good level, but then going against Aston Villa or Rangers, I think it's a monumental jump.
Well, Paul John, I don't know how much you know Dane Murray. I don't know a lot myself. I've only seen what we've seen, but I've heard he's got every single attribute to his game. And I'm talking about every touch, pace, physicality, the lot, and he's really, really good at beating the game. So if you've got those 4 things combined and you're playing under Brendan Rodgers, you've got every opportunity, in my opinion, you're going to get a game.
You know, that game was against Rangers when he's replaced Welsh. Remember, early doors, and Welsh comes off, Nerowski comes in. I think the first thing he done was wrong. After that, it was brilliant, flawless. That was last season. So it's a strange situation, but it must be something with his application at training or the intensity. I don't like to say attitude because, you know, we just don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can't say a player's got a bad attitude, but it's maybe just the application side of it. Interesting times ahead, gentlemen. Will you come back on to talk about it maybe halfway through the season?
Certainly. No problem.
Thanks for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you for having us. Cheers, mate.
Thanks again for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind. Join us next Friday at 6 o'clock for This is Acsom.